Well, today's the day. Everybody gets to see what's in Colin's drawers, and it's kind of a mess and mumble jumble of things I haven't cleaned up. I haven't done anything to rearrange anything. What you're seeing is raw material, raw tools that are in my drawers. So let's have a look. All right, let's start the top drawer. So what do we have here? A couple hammers at the far right side here behind some needle nose pliers. I don't use this very often. This was a gift from my father. I believe it's a cobbler's handle, or a hammer rather. But if anybody knows what this is, it'd be interesting to know what that is. And of course, I've got a rubber mallet there that I use when I'm installing the dowels to make sure they're seated. And then it's just a variety of pliers, needle nose pliers. These are really handy for easily adjustable for different things that I'm needing to get in and out of. Down here I have a project that I'm waiting to get at. I'm trying to figure out a good way of distributing glue over wide areas. So I have a series of rollers, but I'm trying to find a sleeve that will fit over top of that. So I have something coming in, so you may see that coming up. Down to the very far end here, just some Loctite, the blue and the red. The red locks it forever. The blue locks it until you want to undo it. Here's an interesting thing. I got these at the Atlanta show a few years ago. These are pocket sharpening, diamond sharpening little pads, and I use these for sharpening up my chisels when I just want to touch them briefly, and they're marked on the side what the grit is on them, and I just have two of them, and they're pretty handy for just touching up chisels. And what's left in here is basically just electrical 110 power testers and pliers and so on. So that's it for that drawer. Nothing fancy, but all of the stuff that I use quite a bit of, and it's right up on top. Okay, drawer number 2, and this is my measuring drawer, what I call my measuring drawer, and this is where all the tools that I measure and mark with. So starting off at the right, on the right-hand side here, I have two moisture meters. This one is the one that I use probably 95% of the time because I could just lay it on the wood. I don't have to poke it into the wood. This is more for firewood, if I'm getting firewood and I want to find out what the moisture content is, and that's what the pins are for. Underneath that is a stud finder, which I use seldom. This, I get a lot of urban wood, and in urban wood we find nails and screws embedded into it. We've even found bullets deep into the tree. So that's what this is for detecting when you get wood, to find out if there's any metal in it so you don't ruin your blades. Next to that is there's my compass, just some more measuring tools. These are stair gauges for if you're setting up stairs and you need to figure out the depth and angle, or how far the stairs are. In front of that I have one of my marking gauges that normally sits in there. Down here is a digital finder, and I use this frequently because it shows right on here. When you turn that on, you can see there's a readout in there, and so I use that quite a bit. Further along here, we have my digital angle finder, and I did a video on that a few weeks ago. In fact, I'll put a link to that at the end of this video, and you'll be able to go and see that. This is a really neat little unit. You'll be interested to see that. A good refresher if you haven't already seen that. And this one is an interesting little tool for just rounding off the end of wood. You can see there's a nick in that, and you can just score the wood, the edge of a piece of wood, and round off the wood. You can do that or plane it. And this is just a scale for measuring poundage. In my far corner here to the left, a T-bevel and some blades for my recip saw. And in front, I have my digital caliper finder there, and you see I don't leave the battery in it, so it lasts a lot longer. And in front of that, just a bunch of different rulers and things like that I have. Here's an interesting ruler you may not have seen. This is a center finding ruler, so there's the center of it, and there's 1 inch there and another inch there, 2 inch, 2 inch, so you can actually find the center of a piece of wood a little easier, and the bottom part of it is just a straight ruler. So just some interesting things that I have, and that pretty much covers the second drawer. Okay, and my third drawer is mostly like files and scrapers. So behind here, these are the files. This is a chainsaw sharpener, and if you use a chainsaw and you sharpen them from time to time, this is the best tool in the world. I love that tool. Boy, that I don't sharpen my chainsaw a lot, but you get perfect job with that one. This is my old one where I used to do a tooth at a time, and it's just more manual. There's some of my one of my rasps. So what I just covered up over here is a variety of different drill bits that I have, more auger bits and some spade bits. On this side here, there's some smaller files, round files, and three-sided files, and underneath are punches and cold chisels, things like that. Back over here, some wire brushes for my drill and some hole saws. I've got some more of those. You'll see those in a little bit. Just some hole saws that I keep here. And in front of all of this now is a variety of flat and round files that I use from time to time for all sorts of different things. And these handles that you see that look like they're brand new, I actually found those at a garage sale a couple of years ago. They were just selling just handles, and I thought that's perfect. I've got files at home that I can use those on, so that's where that came from. And that's it. Pretty simple third drawer. Okay, and the fourth drawer is probably my favorite drawer. I call this my Dowelmax drawer because, as you know, if you're following my channel, you'll know that I use a lot of dowels. I don't use mortise and tenon joints anymore. I found dowels at least as strong and about a quarter or less the time to make, and even more accurate. So I use dowels for everything now. And I actually have two dowel machines now because I found that sometimes when I'm doing construction, I work with two different sizes, and these are easy to replace. I've got these centers on these Dowelmaxes are easy to replace. You just undo the screws, and you can put in a different center in there. And I often work with the 3/8, which this one is. I use that all the time. But sometimes I'm also working with a 1/4 inch on the same project. So rather than swapping that out, I'll just set that up ahead of time. So I've got all my dowels there, and I have a warehouse of more of them in my wood room. But there's all the different drill bits and so on for them down there. And everything I need for doing joinery is in this drawer. And that's it. Well, my fifth drawer probably needs some work done on it. This is my kind of scraping, planing drawer here. So I've got all sorts of things going on. And the far side down here, I've got a linoleum knife and some scrapers, putty knives down here. Over here I've got, I don't know why I have two of them. Somewhere I've got two rabbiting planes, and I probably need to find a home for that one, and a spoke shave that I don't use very often. Over here is a plane that I made, I think about 20 or so years ago. I love this plane. It is so accurate and so sharp. I just love that plane, so I keep it handy there. And there's my somewhat new little block plane. I use this thing all the time. In fact, I keep that handy on the bench whenever I'm working. Underneath, there's a little plane there that I found at a garage sale for, I think, about $10, and I cleaned it up, and but I don't use it very often. I just loved it because it was such a cute little plane, and underneath is just some of my when you're drilling and tapping. I have that, and I have a kit of a few other ones over there, and there's a little veneering saw for cutting veneers, trimming veneers when you're using them. And of course right there is my stapler, and underneath here is just a little saw that I use, a little pull saw that I take around with me sometimes. And that's it. There's not much more in that. There's just missed that one there. You'll wonder what that is. That's just a glass cutter is all that is. I'm not sure why it's in this drawer, but there it is. Well, now is the last drawer. It's probably the one drawer I need to do the most work on because it's kind of a collection of everything. And in here I've mentioned that I have more hole saw. This is my the rest of my hole saw collection here. I got it upside down. Struggling with it. There it is, and that's all that is, just a little kit that you can keep everything together on. So in here I've got used drill bits, a few good drill bits hanging around, some of my oscillating tool blades. There's a heat gun for gluing. There's my reciprocating saw. Underneath here is a picture frame tool for driving the nails into the wood, an easier way of doing that. And what else do we have in here? Just some glue sticks. So there's that adventure tape that I use from time to time. I love this stuff. Pretty interesting tool. Underneath, just some spare blades for my box cutters. These things here look like they're for putting sanding blocks, but no, these are what we call veneer hammers, and that's when you're putting veneer on and you're gluing it, and you want to put pressure on it to make sure you get a good bond, and that's what those are. So there, and there's a spare sharpening block. I don't use this for sharpening anymore. What I use this for, it's nice and flat. When I'm usually when I'm finishing wood and I do the very last sanding with a 600 or 800 grit, I will use this as a nice flat block on top of that sanding material. And then just some different small wire brushes for getting into areas. I always have some wax handy for drawers and things like that. Some clamps that I don't use. Up front, you saw those in the video not long ago, some twist ties, and at the front here just some T-wrenches for putting in hex screws and so on. So that's it. This is my ugly drawer. Well, that concludes my video. Before I run away, I want to remind you, if you haven't already subscribed, I invite you to do that because I have a video coming up next week on Black Friday tools that I picked up. So it's like way before Christmas, and I'm only getting around to doing that video now. But some interesting things that you may learn some new stuff from. And I mentioned earlier in this video, I'll put a link to my digital angle finder. And remember, this one has magnets on 3 sides, which most of them don't have. So it's a really interesting tool. That video will show up here. If you haven't already seen it, it might be something you get some information out of. I'm Colin for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching today.